The ambush. The sky above the ruined city was dark, covered in smoke and fire. Broken towers leaned against each other like dying giants. The streets were filled with dust, metal, and the smell of burning fuel. Somewhere far away, the sound of weapons echoed like thunder. Captain Daniel moved quietly through the rubble with his squad. Their armor was scratched, their faces dirty, but their eyes were sharp. Every step felt heavy in this war-torn place. The humans had been sent to rescue survivors, but so far, they had only found silence. "Stay alert," Daniel whispered, raising his hand. His voice was calm, but inside his chest, his heart beat fast. He knew something was wrong. Too quiet. Too empty. The squad spread out, their rifles ready. The air was thick, hard to breathe. Daniel's boots crunched on broken glass as he looked at the shadows between the ruins. He felt eyes watching them. Then he heard it. A faint cry. It was small, almost like the voice of a child. Daniel froze. His team looked at him, waiting for orders. He pointed toward the broken wall where the sound had come from. Slowly, carefully, they moved closer. Behind the rubble, he saw her. A young alien girl, no older than 12 in human years, crouched against a pile of stones. Her skin was pale blue, glowing faintly in the darkness. Her large silver eyes were full of fear, and her thin arms hugged her knees tightly. She looked weak, fragile, and completely out of place in this battlefield. Daniel's heart tightened. She was not a soldier. She was innocent. But before he could move, the ground shook. From the rooftops, dark shapes appeared. Alien raiders, armed with plasma rifles. They had been waiting, hiding like shadows. A trap. Ambush. One of Daniel's. Soldiers shouted. Green energy bolts flashed through the air. The squad dove for cover, returning fire. Sparks and explosions lit up the ruins. The sound of gunfire roared louder than thunder. Daniel's instincts screamed at him to fall back, to take cover with his men. But his eyes went back to the alien. Girl. She was still crouched in the open, frozen, unable to move. One wrong shot, and she would be gone. Without thinking, he ran. Bullets of plasma cut past his body, burning the ground. His armor rattled with every impact of nearby fire. He could hear his soldiers yelling, calling his name, but he didn't stop. He jumped over debris, sprinting toward the girl. Then it hit him. The first blast struck his chest plate. Pain exploded through his body, knocking the air from his lungs. He stumbled, but he kept going. The second shot came a second later, just above the first. His vision blurred. His knees almost gave out. The third burned deeper, tearing into his side. He fell to one knee, coughing blood into his helmet. The world tilted. His breath came in sharp, broken gasps. But when he looked up, the girl's silver eyes were still locked on him. She was crying, reaching her small hand toward him. He forced himself up. Every step was fire. Every heartbeat was a hammer. The raiders fired again, but his squad returned heavy fire, covering him. He stumbled across the last stretch of broken ground and dropped in front of the girl, shielding her with his own body. Her small hands grabbed his arm. She said something in a broken human tongue, her voice shaking. "Please, help me." Daniel's blood stained the stones beneath him, but he smiled weakly through the pain. "You're safe now," he whispered. His squad's gunfire grew, louder as they pushed the raiders back. Explosions lit the ruins, throwing shadows across the girl's terrified face. Daniel felt his strength fading, but he refused to let go. The alien girl pressed closer to him, her tears falling on his armor. He could barely hear the battle anymore. His world was filled only with the sound of her voice, the weight of her hand, and the fire burning in his chest. Daniel's thoughts were clear, even as his body weakened. No matter what happens, she lives. I will not let them take her. The smoke thickened, the ruins shook, and the enemy roared in fury. But Daniel stayed on his feet, his weapon raised, his body in front of hers. 3 bullets in his chest, but his will was unbroken. And in that moment, the alien girl knew this human was willing to die for her. Asterisk. The choice the ruins shook with fire and screams. Daniel leaned against the stone wall. The alien girl pressed close to him. His chest burned with every breath, blood leaking through cracks in his armor. His vision blurred, but he forced himself to stay awake. The squad was still fighting. Plasma fire lit the night sky like green lightning. Explosions threw dust and sparks into the air. Daniel's soldiers shouted his name, but he barely heard them. His focus stayed on the girl. She stared up at him with wide silver eyes, trembling. Her lips moved as she tried to speak. The words were broken, heavy with accent, but clear enough. Please, not leave me. Daniel clenched his jaw. His heart felt like it was being crushed by the weight of his wounds. He wanted to tell her. He would not leave, but even speaking was painful. He looked down at her again and saw something strange. Her skin shimmered faintly, like moonlight on water. Not just any child. She was different. Important. Captain. One of his men shouted from across the rubble, "Fall back. We'll cover you." He knew what they meant. Retreat. Escape. Save himself. Leave the girl. The thought twisted like a knife inside him. His body screamed for rest. His blood poured freely, and his strength was slipping away. But when he looked at the girl, he knew. There was no choice. He shook his head slowly, pressing his hand against his rifle. "No," he whispered, more to himself than to anyone else. "I don't leave her." The girl clutched his arm tighter, her fingers cold and shaking. For a moment, he saw fear and hope battling in her eyes. The squad tried to push toward them, firing hard at the raiders. The enemy fought like shadows, fast and merciless, their strange language echoing in the ruins. Daniel knew his team couldn't hold the line forever. He forced himself up, gritting his teeth against the burning pain in his chest. Every movement felt like fire. But he wrapped one arm around the girl and pulled her to her feet. "We move," he said in a rough, broken voice. She nodded quickly, tears running down her cheeks. The squad shouted again, urging him to run toward the extraction point. But Daniel chose a different path. The enemy was closing in that way. If they went there, both he and the girl would be cut down. Instead, he turned toward the deeper ruins, where the shadows were thick and the path uncertain. He knew it was dangerous. He knew it could kill him. But he also knew it was the only chance for her. "Captain, you're going the wrong way," one of his men cried. Daniel didn't answer. His choice was made. He staggered forward, carrying the girl despite the pain tearing at his body. The sound of gunfire followed him. His men gave covering fire, but he knew they couldn't follow. He was on his own. The girl whispered as they moved, her voice small but steady. "Why? You save me? You dying?" Daniel looked at her, his breath ragged. He wanted to laugh at the question, but his lungs ached too much. "Because that's what humans do," he said simply. She blinked at him as if she didn't understand. Then her eyes softened, as though some part of her did. They moved through broken streets, past fires and fallen machines. Each step was agony, but Daniel refused to fall. He would not let her die here. Behind them, the battle raged on. He didn't know if his squad would survive. He didn't know if he himself would survive. But his mind was clear. The girl must. Live at one point, his legs gave out and he collapsed against a wall. He gasped for air, coughing blood. The girl tried to pull him up, but she was too small, too weak. "You can go," he whispered, his voice faint. "Run. Hide. You'll make it." She shook her head fiercely, her silver eyes flashing. "No, not leave you. You, my protector." Daniel felt a strange warmth in his chest, not from his wounds, but from her words. Protector. He was more than a soldier now. He was her shield, her last hope. He forced himself back to his feet, leaning on the wall, dragging himself forward, step by step. His vision flickered, his strength faded, but his will stayed strong. In that moment, Daniel made his choice clear, not just to himself, but to the universe. If I die here, I die standing. And she lives. The ruins shook again, echoing with enemy roars. The night was far from over, and Daniel, with 3 bullets in his chest, carried the girl into the darkness, choosing sacrifice over survival. Asterisk. The ruins stretched endlessly in every direction, broken walls and shattered towers cutting the skyline. Smoke and fire painted the night in red and black. Captain Daniel's boots dragged across the stones as he moved forward with the alien girl clinging to his side. Every step was a battle. His chest burned, his wounds screaming with each movement. The 3 shots had torn deep, and the blood was not stopping. But still, he kept going. Behind them, the sound of the fight grew distant. His squad was still holding back the raiders, but Daniel knew they couldn't last forever. The enemy would come after him soon. The alien girl looked up at him, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. "You weak," she said softly. "You fall soon." Daniel gave a faint, tired smile. "Maybe, but not yet." She tightened her small hands around his arm, as if afraid he would slip away at any moment. The street ahead forked into 2 paths, one narrow and dark, leading deeper into the ruins, and the other wider, glowing faintly with the light of enemy fires. Daniel chose the darkness. He staggered through broken corridors, past collapsed bridges and twisted metal. The silence was heavy, broken only by his uneven breaths and the girl's soft footsteps. But he knew the enemy was not far. And then the sound came. A sharp metallic growl. Daniel froze. From the shadows ahead, something massive moved. The ground shook under its weight. A hulking war beast, half machine and half flesh, crawled from the rubble. Its red eyes glowed, and its armor plates hissed with steam. The alien girl gasped, pulling back in fear. Daniel raised his rifle with shaking hands. His body was almost done, but his mind sharpened. If this beast killed them, then everything, the bullets, the pain, the sacrifice, would mean nothing. The war beast roared, a sound like grinding metal, and charged. Daniel fired. The shots cracked in the night, striking the beast's armor. Sparks flew, but it didn't stop. The creature slammed into a wall, breaking stone, its claws tearing through debris. Daniel staggered back, firing again, but his vision swam. His arms trembled, the rifle heavy as a mountain. The beast kept coming. The girl cried out, stepping in front of him. "No, don't hurt him." She shouted at the creature, her voice echoing strangely. For a second, Daniel thought he imagined it, but then he saw it. The air around her shimmered, glowing faintly like silver light. Her small hands stretched out, and the beast slowed. It snarled, shaking its head, but something unseen was pressing against it. A force, a power. Daniel stared in shock. This was no ordinary child. The girl's voice trembled as she spoke. "Go back, go back." The beast roared, fighting against her power, but its steps faltered. Finally, with a furious cry, it turned and smashed back into the ruins, disappearing into the smoke. The light faded. The girl dropped to her knees, shaking, her face pale. Daniel knelt beside her, ignoring the fire in his chest. "What was that?" he asked, his voice hoarse, She looked at him, tears in her eyes. I can't tell. Not yet. But I'm not just girl. She stopped, biting her lip. If I die, war will never end. Daniel's blood turned cold. He didn't fully understand, but he didn't need to. This girl was not only innocent, she was important. Maybe the most important person on this planet. He put a hand on her shoulder. Then we keep moving. You don't die here. She nodded, weakly leaning against him. Together, they pushed forward again, deeper into the ruins. But the danger wasn't over. From behind, distant shouts echoed. The raiders had broken through. The hunt was on. Daniel tightened his grip on his rifle, ignoring the pain ripping through his chest. The girl beside him was trembling, but her eyes carried a strange new strength. They were being hunted. The ruins were closing in. His body was failing, and yet Daniel knew one thing for certain. He would not let the girl fall. Not while he could. Still stand. The last stand. The ruins grew darker as Daniel and the alien girl stumbled deeper into the broken city. The fires behind them glowed faintly, and the sound of the raiders' hunt grew louder. Their shouts echoed like ghosts, promising death if they were caught. Daniel's body was close to collapse. Every breath scraped his lungs like knives. The 3 plasma wounds burned hotter with every step, and blood still dripped beneath his armor. His hands shook as he gripped the rifle, but his mind stayed clear. He had one mission left: keep the girl alive. The alien girl walked beside him, holding onto his arm tightly. Her silver eyes scanned the darkness nervously, and her small body trembled, but she did not let go. She had already shown her strange power against the war beast. Daniel still didn't understand it, but he knew it meant she was no ordinary survivor. Suddenly, a noise came from ahead. The sound of metal striking stone. Daniel raised his weapon, forcing his tired body into a fighting stance. From the shadows, shapes emerged. Raiders, at least a dozen. Their glowing eyes and weapons reflected the dim light. They had circled around, trapping him in the ruins. The girl gasped, clutching his arm. Too many, she whispered. Daniel's eyes narrowed. He knew she was right. He couldn't win. Not like this. His strength was almost gone, his wounds too deep. But he also knew he couldn't run anymore. There was nowhere left to go. This was it. Stay behind me, he said, his voice rough but steady. He planted himself in the middle of the rubble, rifle raised, his body a shield for the girl. His legs felt like stone, his chest like fire, but his will was steel. The raiders snarled and began to move in. Daniel opened fire. His shots cracked in the night, each one echoing through the ruins. The first raider fell, then another. Sparks flew as plasma bolts smashed into walls around him. He moved like a man already dead, each pull of the trigger driven only by will. A blast struck his shoulder, spinning him back. He staggered, but did not fall. Another shot burned across his leg. He dropped to one knee, coughing blood, but still fired back. The girl screamed his name, trying to drag him away, but he shook his head. No, stand behind me. The raiders closed in, shouting in their harsh language, ready to finish him. Daniel's rifle clicked empty. He drew his sidearm with shaking hands, firing until the last shot was gone. The empty weapon fell from his grasp. He was bleeding, broken, barely standing, yet his eyes blazed. If this is it, he whispered to himself, then I die protecting her. The raiders raised their weapons for the final strike. But then the air changed. The girl stepped forward, no longer hiding. Her small body shook, but her silver eyes burned with a light brighter than before. She raised her hands, and the air itself seemed to ripple. The ruins filled with a strange hum, deep and powerful, like the voice of the planet itself. The raiders froze for a moment, confused. Then the light burst from her dot. It was silver, pure, and blinding. It exploded outward in a wave, striking the raiders with invisible force. They screamed, their weapons flying from their hands, their bodies thrown against walls. Some fled into the darkness, terrified. Others lay broken in the rubble. Daniel dropped his head, unable to believe what he was seeing. The girl was glowing like a star, her hair floating in the energy, her voice echoing in a language he didn't understand. When the light faded, silence filled the ruins again. The enemies were gone. The girl collapsed to her knees, drained and weak. Daniel forced his broken body to crawl toward her. His hand rested on her shoulder. "You saved us," he whispered, his voice fading. She shook her head, tears in her glowing eyes. "No, you saved me first. Without you, I would be gone. I am not just child. I am heir. My people, they need me. You chose to protect me. And now, I choose to protect you." Daniel's vision blurred, his body on the edge of collapse. But inside, he felt a strange peace. Even if this was the end for him, he knew he had kept his promise. Still, as the girl pressed her hands to his wounds, a faint silver light spread into his chest. His pain lessened, his breath steadied just slightly. Not healed, but held back from death. Daniel's last thought before darkness took him was simple. She's more powerful than I ever imagined. And she's the reason I cannot fall. The ruins grew quiet. But both of them knew the war was far from over. Asterisk. The truth revealed when Daniel opened his eyes. The world was no longer filled with fire and smoke. Instead, he saw a ceiling of smooth stone, carved with glowing lines that pulsed softly like veins of light. The air was cool and clean, so different from the burning ruins where he had fallen. His chest still ached. The pain of the 3 bullet wounds had not disappeared, but it was dulled, as if something was holding him on the edge between life and death. He tried to move, but his body felt heavy. And he heard a voice. "You should rest," the alien girl whispered. She was sitting beside him, her silver eyes calm but still tired. Her hands glowed faintly with that same light he had seen before. And he realized she had been using her power to keep him alive. Daniel struggled to speak. "Where are we?" She looked around the chamber, her voice soft. "A sanctuary, hidden temple. My people built it long ago. Only those of my blood can open it." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Your blood?" The girl hesitated. She had carried this secret for too long, and now, because of him, she could not hide it any more. "I am not just a girl," she said finally. "I am Princess Syria, heir to the throne of my people. If I die, the empire falls into war. Many worlds will burn." Daniel's breath caught. He stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. He had thought he was saving a child innocent, fragile, helpless. But in truth, he had been protecting the key to peace in the galaxy. Syria's voice trembled as she continued. "The raiders, they were sent to kill me. If they succeed, rival clans will rise. My people will fight each other. And soon they will bring war to humanity too." Daniel closed his eyes for a moment, letting the truth sink in. The 3 bullets in his chest were not just scars now. They were proof of why humanity mattered. In this fight, he looked back at her, his voice rough but steady. "So if you die, the galaxy burns. That's why you can't fall." Syria nodded slowly. Her hands shook as she pressed them against his chest again, light glowing faintly as she tried to keep his wounds stable. "You should have left me. You are dying because of me." Daniel gave a faint, tired smile. "No, I chose this. I'd do it again." Her silver eyes softened, filling with something more than gratitude, something deeper. "Why?" Why would a human give so much? For me? For someone not of his kind? Daniel breathed heavily, his eyes fixed on her. Because we don't measure life by skin, or blood, or species. We fight for what's right, for what must be protected. And you're worth it. For a moment, silence filled the chamber. Syria's tears shimmered in the silver glow. She reached out and gently took his hand, holding it tightly. Then I swear, she whispered, her voice shaking, your sacrifice will not be forgotten. I will never let your wounds be in vain. You have given me hope again, and hope is stronger than fear. Daniel tried to sit up, but the pain forced him back down. Still, his eyes never wavered. What happens now? The raiders won't stop. They'll keep coming until they find you. Syria looked down, her small hands clenching. Yes, but I am not alone anymore. I have you, and you have me. Daniel gave a rough laugh, though it turned into a cough. You're a princess. I'm just a soldier bleeding out on your floor. But she shook her head fiercely. No, you are more. You are my shield, my proof that humans are not weak, not selfish. You are the one who showed me courage greater than any weapon. For the first time since the war began, Daniel felt something other than pain. He felt purpose. The bullets in his chest were no longer just wounds. They were symbols. He looked at Syria and spoke with quiet strength. Then, we stand together. If they want you, they'll have to go through me again. She squeezed his hand, her silver eyes glowing brighter. And this time, they will face not just you, but me. The chamber pulsed with light, as if the temple itself had heard her vow. Somewhere in the distance, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed, reminding them both that their enemies were still near. Daniel closed his eyes, drawing in a deep, painful breath. His body was broken, but his spirit was unshaken. The truth was clear now. The girl he had chosen to save was no ordinary survivor. She was the hope of an empire, the key to peace, the one life that could change the galaxy. And despite 3 bullets in his chest, Daniel knew saving her was worth everything. Asterisk, the reward worth everything. Hidden temple shook as distant explosions echoed through the ruins. Dust fell from the carved ceiling, and the silver lights flickered. The raiders had found the sanctuary. Captain Daniel struggled to sit up, his chest still burning with the weight of 3 wounds. He could hear the footsteps outside, heavy and relentless, getting closer with every second. Princess Syria knelt beside him, her silver eyes glowing faintly. She looked frightened, but not broken. They're coming, she whispered. Daniel forced himself to his feet, leaning against the wall for support. His body felt like it was made of stone, but his will was iron. Then we make our stand. Right here. Syria shook her head. You can't fight. You'll die. Daniel gave her a faint smile, blood on his lips. I already should be dead. These 3 bullets, they didn't stop me before. They won't stop me now. The great stone doors at the edge of the temple trembled as the raiders outside prepared to break through. Syria stood taller, her small frame glowing with silver light. Not just you. This time, they face us both. Daniel glanced at her. For the first time, he saw not a fragile girl, but a princess, a leader, someone born to carry the weight of a galaxy. He nodded slowly. Then let's show them what humanity and your people can do together. The doors shattered, and the raiders stormed inside, weapons blazing. Daniel fired first. His shots cracked like thunder, cutting down the lead attackers. Plasma bolts slammed into the walls around him, forcing him back, but he refused to fall. Beside him, Syria lifted her hands, and the temple itself seemed to awaken. Silver light surged from the walls, wrapping around her like armor. With a cry, she unleashed a wave of energy that blasted across the room. Raiders flew through the air, crashing into stone. Still, more poured in. Daniel dropped his empty rifle and pulled his knife, fighting hand to hand. Every move sent pain through his chest, but he struck with deadly precision. Each swing was slower than before, but each one counted. The raiders shouted in fury, but they could not push through the combined strength of a broken human soldier. And a glowing alien princess. At last, the survivors hesitated. The light from Syria's body grew brighter, filling the temple like dawn. Her voice echoed with power as she spoke in her people's tongue, her words sharp and commanding. The raiders faltered. Some dropped their weapons and fled. Others fell to their knees, unable to resist the weight of her presence. And just like that, the battle ended. The silence that followed was heavy. Daniel dropped to his knees, exhausted, his knife clattering to the floor. His vision swam, but he was still alive. Syria rushed to him, catching him before he fell. "Don't you dare leave me now," she said, tears shining in her silver eyes. Gave a weak laugh, not planning to. The temple doors closed again, sealing them in. For the first time since the ambush, they were safe. Hours later, when Daniel woke again, the chamber was filled with people. Syria's people. They had followed the light, drawn to their air. Soldiers in shining armor, leaders in fine robes, all stood in silence as Princess Syria stepped forward, holding Daniel's hand. Her voice was strong now, no longer trembling. "This human risked his life for me. He took 3 wounds to his chest, and still he stood against death itself. Without him, I would not be here. Without him, peace would already be lost." The crowd bowed their heads. Syria looked down at Daniel, her voice softening. "You said saving me was worth it. But today, I say you are worth even more. Humanity is not just ally. Humanity is family." The chamber erupted in agreement. The soldiers saluted Daniel, and the leaders placed their hands over their hearts. Daniel's chest still burned, and he knew his scars would never fade. But as he sat there, honored by thousands, with Syria's hand still gripping his, he felt something greater than pain. He felt purpose. He had not just saved a girl. He had saved a future. And though the cost had been high, though 3 bullets had nearly taken his life, Daniel knew one truth above all: the reward was worth everything. Asterisk.